Okay, good day, people. How are we doing today? So, I'm using my new mic. Hopefully, the sound is much better than it's been for some time. All right, so today I wanted to talk about a trending topic. I think on Twitter, Nigeria, um, common, there's a big argument around living um, within your means. Okay, some say living below your means. I think that's where the argument began. Living below your means. Now, I understand that there's a lot of different perspective around um, living within or below your means. And some will even argue that some people don't even have means at all, especially given the way the country is with, you know, minimum wage being so low. Some people don't necessarily have, the means. But one thing you must understand is that as long as you have an income, that is some means. Now, what you do to increase that income will determine largely if you're going to remain within that place or if you're going to move forward. And that's why it's so important for you, first and foremost, to be aware of what habits that you have imbibed that is putting you at risk of either remaining where you are or retrogressing. Now, for example, we have people who spend majority of their income on rent. So, for example, your rent is like 70% of your income, of your annual income. Now, that is outrageous. It just means that where you're living is above your pay grade. Now, you may argue that, but if I don't stay in certain places, I will not have certain opportunities. But the truth is, where you have not reached, you have simply not reached there. If you have not grown up to a certain level, there's no point being in that place. So, for example, if you ought to be living in some part of Lagos and you're living in some more affluent part of Lagos, now you must understand that depending on where you live in Lagos, the cost of living is different. So somebody who lives in Mushin, for example, and somebody who lives in Lekki, the cost of living in both places, even though they're in the same city, is completely different. And you must always be aware of this every time you're thinking of moving to a place or to a new place. You have to be aware of how that will impact on your income. And so most of the times it's not just about, I think the right advice is living within your means, which means don't overspend. I think we talked about this extensively during the Creating Financial Structure series. And we said it's important for you to make sure that you cap your expenses. Every month, cap your expenses. Yes. And that will help you to make sure that you don't have anything that is going to draw you back in the future. So, for example, if you have a lot of people are in debt because they've put themselves into situations that is draining their income. For example, if you spend more than you're making every month, there's no way you're getting out of poverty. You're going to remain there for a long time. Even if your income increases, all the deficit that you have accumulated, where is it going to disappear to? You're going to have to deal with that. And that's why it's so important for you to put a cap on your expenses. Now, that might mean changing your diet. That might mean cutting down on certain excesses. Yes. So, for example, I had a mentee who told me that he likes to eat well, and there's nothing wrong in that. Eating well is very important, but you must also eat well within your means. Because if you say you want to eat well and you're eating, you know, every month you are exceeding all your income, you don't need a soothsayer to tell you what the future will be like. And many of us, we spend in anticipation of a future breakthrough, which is a very, very funny, mindset. I think it's also um, entrenched by religious bodies, that tell you that, oh, don't worry, God is going to open doors for you. Why that is true, but God does not open doors to somebody who is not doing anything. The doors are only going to open from what you are doing. So if you're not doing anything productive, anything useful to humanity, there's a high chance that no door is going to open to you. And that's why it's so important for you to make sure that where you are not spending beyond what you are producing in that moment, which means you need to spend a little lower than what you're making. Now, that little lower will give you room to be able to save, for example, and from your savings, you can invest. Now, those are the two things that give you a chance to move to another level. Yes. And that's why it's so important for you to take your finances very seriously. I believe that a lot of people are not able to reach their potentials because of their financials. The financial system is, of course, horrible. And so they're perpetually in debt. And when you're in debt, you're going to continuously be tied to the same place. Even if something takes you up a little bit, that debt will hold you back. And that's why it's so important for you. You can't even chase your dream when you have debt around your neck you know and that's why it's so important for you to be clear about certain things. We talked about black tax some videos ago. We talked about taking on responsibilities that are beyond your capacity. Look, you start working as a young person, there's no reason why you should be sending money home yet. That is if you have to. But there's no reason to be doing that at the beginning, because when you do that, you're not going to be able to gather anything together. And if you can't gather, what are you going to build with? Right? And this is something that every young person needs to pay attention to, because if you're going to give yourself the chance to grow, then there must be a season of isolation. Yes. Remember when you take the seed and you put it in the ground, that's an isolation process. Yes. If you don't isolate the seed, it cannot produce the harvest. And that's why it's so important for you to always at all times have your mind fixated on where you're going. Where you're going will help you to then make certain decisions that will make it possible to protect your growth process and help yourself out from being put under unnecessary pressure. A lot of us, we get put under so much pressure by, family, friends, even expectations you have set for yourself that is dragging you into the mud. And so that's why it's important for you to ask yourself, like in the last video, I said, if you don't know what your purpose is, it will be reflected in your finances, because there is no provision without a vision. So if you know where you're going, there's a high chance that there will be a provision for that vision. And so it's important for you to, understand that living below your means or living within your means is sound advice. It's not something that, some say it's a privilege, maybe, but the truth is, whether you like it or not, if you constantly spend above your income, you cannot move up, and that's why there's a word called sacrifice, which means sometimes you have to make sacrifices. You have to forego some things. Maybe in the next video, I'll share my own personal story and, we'll further the conversation. Thank you for listening. Catch you in the next video.